I am very happy and excited to be talking today to Kristy Cox. Hello, Kristy. Welcome to Sunburnt Country Music.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your music. I have been so enjoying listening to your 7th album, Shades of Blue, which was released not that long ago. And I imagine for some artists, maybe by the 7th album, it's feeling a little bit like it's rote, but you certainly don't sound like it's rote. You sound just as impassioned as you did when you first were releasing music. So how do you maintain your love for what you do?
To be honest, I think I'm only just starting to find myself as an artist. I think I'm only just starting to get comfortable.
Ah.
So, I think with every album I'm growing and I'm trying to better myself and make a better product than the one before and delve into this genre of music that I love so much. And I'm constantly learning every day. So I'm very excited. I'm surrounded by people that inspire me every day, and I just I love it. I'm very lucky to do what I do.
So do you approach each song, therefore, I guess it sounds like you approach it with beginner mind, as the term would be, that each song is something new to discover. You don't look at a song and think, oh, I've done something like this before. It's like there's a story in here to tell. It's an opportunity to perform in perhaps a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very picky when it comes to my songs. I'm definitely an artist first and a songwriter second. I don't mind whether or not I've written the songs or whether they've been written for me or if they've just been pitched to me. I just want to record the best songs that I can find, and with that, I also want to make sure that they're songs that I relate to and that I feel like I can portray as best possible. So I guess that's always the goal every time I get into the studio and into the pre-production of a new album, is just making sure that I'm picking songs that are relatable. Yeah.
I suppose there is an emphasis on singer-songwriter, and as you said, you do write songs, and I remember interviewing you years ago, and I think you'd not long been in Nashville and gone over as a songwriter. But the art of singing and performing and really taking on a song, whether you've written it or someone else has, and making it this perfect little jewel of performance is an art, and takes a lot of work and practice. And I do think sometimes there's that emphasis on singers having to be songwriters, as maybe being held out as the ultimate thing. It's a wonderful thing, but there's so much value in singing in and of itself.
Yes, and on the flip of the other side of the coin, there's songwriters out there that may not be singers or artists, but they have something to say and they're brilliant at what they do, and without us artists to sing those songs, they wouldn't have an avenue to get them out. So I think singer-songwriter, I mean, there's some legendary singer-songwriters, but there is also a lot of artists out there in the world that get very cooped up into, I want to be a singer-songwriter, and they maybe miss the mark a little bit on what it is to record a great song. I've never been one to sit back and go, well, I can't do that because I didn't write it. I just want to have the best songs that I can get, and being surrounded by incredible songwriters on a daily basis, I know that I can write some songs, but I also know that I'm not a writer compared to them. So,
well, you say that, yet
I did with myself.
I did see on your Instagram that you had a track that was on someone else's album, so other people are recording your songs.
I'm very shocked.
Well, I'm sure it's not going to be the only one either. But does it feel strange to have your songs recorded by someone else?
Yeah, it really does. It's very thrilling, and it's interesting to see how another artist will interpret what you've written, and I think that's a really cool thing to experience. Because we all have our own things that we do when we sing and when we perform, and with the way that we present our attitude and our you know, who we are into the songs that we record. It's interesting because I may write one song and, you know, I've interpreted it one way and the artist that's recorded it's interpreted it in a completely different way, which is a really cool thing to experience, definitely.
Yeah, and something which you understand, of course, because you take a song and find your connection to it and record it. And so, yeah, you know both sides of that process.
Yes.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with your music, even though you've had 7 albums, there may be some people who are new to you and your music. It would be great to hear about how you first came to love bluegrass as a genre.
Yeah, I obviously grew up listening to a lot of country music and bluegrass music back home in South Australia, and my pop would listen to all the classics, and I guess I just kind of fell in love with that kind of music. And I love country music, but the thing I love about bluegrass music is that it's still got the stories. It's still got the story songs, and, you know, talks about the characters and the land and the people, and then it's got that harmony. It's got that 4-way harmony, and I love how raw bluegrass music is. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter if it's on my album or if it's on my back porch, it sounds exactly the same. And, you know, we don't need any overdubs or any PA systems, and we don't need, you know, auto-tune or, you know, a click track or a clap track or a slap and whatever track it is that they do these days. You know, we just make music the way that, you know, the instruments are meant to be played, and I love that about it. It's good. I guess it sucked me in.
And sucks a lot of people in because it's great music. You mentioned the story song aspect of it, and on this album there are quite a few songs that are about yearning. Well, I felt that was a theme, yearning for places, people, and the past sometimes. Now, it's been a long time since you've been able to come home to Australia, so I imagine you are actually in a place of yearning.
Very much so. I would be lying if I said the last 2 years have been really easy. I mean, I live in America and I play American bluegrass music, but I'm Australian, and you can take the girl out of Australia, but you can't take Australian out of the girl. And I love the beach, and we live in Tennessee, so I'm landlocked. So it's been hard. I haven't, you know, of course I miss my family more than anything. But more than that, I miss the culture, and I miss the people, and I miss the landscape. And it's not been easy for us, you know, for us that are stuck on this side of the pond. It hasn't been easy. And, you know, I made that reluctant mistake of putting on a face back, oh, come on, Australia, open up your borders, I want to come home. And, you know, people are like, well, you know, you had your chance. And I'm like, well, yeah, none of us really thought that this was going to go on as long as it has. And, you know, I think in hindsight, if we knew that, maybe we all would have come home in March of 2020 just to hug our loved ones and say, I love you, and get back on the plane again, you know. Yeah. So it's been hard on us Aussies that are over here, and all expats all over the world that are separated from their family. It's been different for sure. Yeah. I think the one thing that you think when you live in, you know, today's age of airplanes and things is, you know, well, it's okay because I'm only 24 hours. I'm a 24-hour flight away. Mm-hmm. And that's not possible now. You know, we're not just a 24-hour flight away. So looking forward to getting home as soon as we can, where it's actually, you know, feasible that I'm not going to get stuck from my children for 3 weeks.
Yeah, which is a real consideration. And yes, hindsight is 2020 vision. And you know, I think everyone in 2020, which is an unintentional play on words, thought that if the border was closed, it would only be for a few months. There was no way anyone could have predicted it would be this long. And so even if you had thought, oh, it should have come home in March, you probably thought it will only be another few months that I can get home. And it's not a situation for which we have any precedent to handle. No. I think emotionally, like, try to process it intellectually, there's no precedent.
No, and I've had many times, you know, sitting down and just thinking, wow, what did my great grandmother go through? Mm-hmm. You know, like World War II, and her husband was on the other side of the world fighting a war, and she didn't see him for 4 years, and there was no mobile phones or FaceTime or like, wow. I'm struggling just to FaceTime my mum every week. Like, how did they do that back then? It blows my mind.
Well, I think it's partly what you said about thinking that you're only 24 hours away from home, that expectation we had in that highly mobile world before March 2020 was that we could come home quickly. So, I mean, in the world wars, a letter home every few months was the expectation.
Yes.
But to go back to your album, because we started talking about this because of what I felt was the theme of yearning in the album. Was that consciously there, or were there other themes that you were looking for or working on while you recorded?
Oh, I don't know whether it was intentional, but I think as artists, we're definitely drawn to songs that kind of sum up how we're feeling in the moment. Whether we do that subconsciously or not, I'm not sure. But I mean, there's songs on this album to me that were just a no-brainer. Person of the Year is a perfect example. That song to me is, I have radio presenters over here in America that say it's an anthem, which is something that I never thought anyone would say about one of my songs. But that song for the frontline workers, to me, that was a no-brainer. I wanted to record that for them to say thank you for all of the hard work that they've done over the last couple of years. And, songs like Dirt Road, I've had many moments in the last couple of years where I'm like, maybe we should just pack up and move to the country because this is crazy. But instead of actually selling my house and moving to the country, I just wrote a song about it.
Well, it's part of the function of art. Now, you mentioned Person of the Year, and that is one of that is the subject of one of your 2 Golden Guitar nominations. It's nominated for Bluegrass Recording of the Year. You won that award last year. Can you back it up this year?
I've actually won it the last 2 years.
Oh, there you go.
So
I'm behind.
I don't think that I'll get it in a row. I think I might be pushing my luck. Of course, I would be completely honoured if I did, but I don't record music to win awards. I record music because I love music, and I've been really lucky, and I love my Australian country music family, and their support of me has been amazing. So I feel very lucky to be in there again in the top 5. So, the bluegrass category this year, I think it's the strongest it's been. It's got incredible entries, and, if I was to win that award, it wouldn't be for me. It would be for all of those nurses and doctors out there that have done it hard in the last couple of years. It would be for them, not for me. So,
but if you do win it, you can call it a hat trick and light up your golden guitars 3 in a row, take a photo. The Kristy Cox hat trick.
The Kristy Cox hat trick. I'm not sure if anyone's ever won 3 golden guitars in a row in the same category. I'm going to have to look that up. That might be a stretch.
But your other Golden Guitar nomination is for Vocal Collaboration of the Year with Still Call Australia Home, a very appropriate song given what we've just been discussing. And there were quite a few Australians based in Nashville on that song. How difficult was it to coordinate the recording of it?
Surprisingly really easy.
There you go.
Because we haven't had the lockdowns over here that they've had in Australia. So we just kind of went to the studio and recorded the song.
And you were all in Nashville, so that was really handy.
Yeah. And, it wasn't hard to do because, originally we recorded that song for the Australian consulate. They used it for their Anzac Day celebration. And, I knew one of the guys that worked up at the consulate in Chicago because I got my passport done. And, he just rang me and said, do you think you could get some Australians together to do this? We want to, do it for all of us expats that are stuck here working in the States. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And it just, it wasn't hard to get people to, the other artists to come onto the project because we all miss home. Like we all miss home. So I called, a bunch of friends and every single one of them said yes. And we didn't expect it to come out the way that it did. And when it did, we're like, maybe we should release this. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a fluke, but it was a lot of fun to record, and we're really proud of the version that we've done of the song. And it gave me goosebumps the first time that I heard the final product, with everyone on it. And yeah, we're happy with it. We're very proud of it. So,
as you should be. And it's nominated, which is wonderful. So given that there haven't been the lockdowns in the States that we've had here, have you been able to play shows?
No.
Okay. Right.
So no, I mean, we're not locked down in our homes. We've been able to go out, and other than the first 2 weeks to flatten the curve, life has pretty much been normal, except for concerts and large gatherings and music gatherings and things like that. Of course, the football's fine, but
same here.
Music, for some reason, music's not fine. So no, it's been, from a music standpoint, it's pretty much been the same. I think from a promoter and a venue standpoint, it's hard to know what is, from a legal standpoint, they've been able to run the shows, but from a social aspect, what's acceptable, what risk can you put your people in? And I think that's been more of the reason that things have been cancelled here. It's been more from a conscience, we want to do the right thing by our audience and our artists. And so there has been a lot of cancellations, but they're coming back online slowly but surely. So.
Because usually when you release an album, you book a tour. I know for you, often releases have coincided with a visit home and Tamworth. So I suppose there's a point at which you don't think about delaying an album anymore because it's the thinking, how long will we delay it? There's no point in just continuing to think we'll wait until we can tour. So, but was that a consideration for your release?
Yes and no. I released No Headlights 3 weeks before the pandemic, so I had already had an album that I released and couldn't tour.
Right.
But here in the States, it is extremely imperative that you have new content for radio. You don't have a career here if you don't have new stuff on radio. We've got to have a new single out every 3 months.
Right.
Or you lose momentum. So we just got to the point where, the old album was getting old. Most bluegrass artists record an album every 12 to 18 months.
Right. And
it had been nearly 2 years since I released an album. So from that standpoint, it was, well, whether we release this album or not is, that's not too much of a concern, but we need new content for radio. So, and I love making albums. So, and, hopefully this year I will be able to get on the road and do a lot more shows, and I'll have 2 albums that nobody's got yet. So it's good.
So just on that point of new content, because that's quite a pace, do you record some songs as singles to kind of meet that schedule, or do you prefer to record a bunch of songs as an album and then start releasing the singles from that?
We record everything as an album and release the singles from that. The bluegrass scene here is an album-driven market. It's not a Spotify, iTunes kind of market. You don't release one song. You release a whole album. So we go in and we record the album, and we will pre-release a couple of singles before the album comes out. This album had Person of the Year and then Appalachian Blue. But pretty much everything's coming off of an album. I don't know of any bluegrass artist that's just recording singles. So I guess it's just the differences in genres, I suppose.
Which is so interesting, but I think it goes back to what you were saying about stories in the songs, because the album is like a storybook then.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
So one other thing you do that is quite Australian that I've read about is that you run a coffee cart in Nashville.
I do.
So when I read that, I thought, well, that's a good expat thing to do. So that must be interesting and busy.
Yeah, I mean, I just needed a really good cup of coffee.
I think that's the reason. Yeah.
No, I actually got runner-up in the Australian Barista Championships, back before I moved over here, and I love coffee. I love espresso, and I've been to coffee roasters and coffee plantations, and I'm a bit of a coffee geek. It's my second love. I love bluegrass music, and I love really good coffee. So we've got a 1963 Airstream, and we've got a really nice La Marzocco espresso machine in there, and we get around making Australian style lattes and flat whites for the Americans, and it's great. They love it.
Sorry, I'm still stuck on you saying you were a runner-up in a barista championship. That's amazing. Because those championships would have been stiff competition the last few years. There are a lot of people in Australia making good coffee.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky to be trained by a fella named Will, who was the world barista champion. And so I got lucky. Yeah. But I do love a good cup of coffee.
So do you think you're changing the American taste for coffee? Because, of course, the Australian taste of coffee is a bit stronger than it used to be many decades ago.
Well, I mean, we have some of our customers that just want their brewed cup of black coffee, right. Which we do. But, most people order a latte, and, they've never tasted anything like it. It's not Starbucks. So it's good. I think, if we ever get lucky enough to have an actual physical store, people will come back. At the moment we do events. We do music events, craft festivals and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, if you have a store, you could, of course, combine bluegrass and coffee, because you could perform. That would be a long day for you, making coffee in the morning.
See, that's my plan. That's my long-term plan.
Well, on that note, because it's a very good note to end on, because I love the idea of the Kristy Cox cafe performance space. Thank you very much for speaking to me, and hope we do see you back here at some point in the very near future.
I would absolutely love that. I'm looking forward to getting home, and I miss everybody a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, Kristy. Bye.
Thanks.